Okay, in this one, this is the second part of videos series I'm doing on the second law of thermodynamics in regards to whether God exists, abiogenesis, where did life come from, how did we get here, evolution, etc. So, without further ado, we're going in this second part. I'm going to show a video from an atheist who makes claims about the second law of thermodynamics that I will attempt to show. Basically, it's junk science that he's pushing, total junk science. So this is a video by Joe Hansen. It's just a small clip of what he did on the second law of thermodynamics. Let's watch this short video, secular video clip.
There's only a few unbreakable laws in the universe, and one says that disorder always increases. We see this play out everywhere. Unfortunately, some people think this law is a problem for evolution.
Some people have said that life is basically applied chemistry, and chemistry is essentially applied physics. So then in that case, is biology applied physics? Although, you might say that physics is applied math, so I don't know how far we want to go here.
Well, without biology, there wouldn't be physicists, but you have a point. Like anything else, life obeys the universe's laws. A physicist might say you and a bacterium are both ordered bunches of particles. You're just a fancier and more complex arrangement. But surely, saying you evolved from something like that breaks the second law. How could evolution add order and complexity to life? There's something you haven't been told about the second law. It only applies to closed systems, and Earth is not a closed system. If you took a pan of cookie dough, half frozen, half room temperature, and put it in a cold oven, eventually, thanks to entropy, you'd get a bunch of equally uncooked cookies, even though the total amount of energy has remained the same. But if we turn on the oven, if we add energy to the system, our disordered dough can transform into something deliciously ordered. The sun is like our oven. It's constantly showering Earth with more energy than we can use. That energy changes DNA. Plants use it to make more plants. Animals make more animals. And we turned it into cookies, all without breaking the law. Stay curious.
Okay, so in the video, like I've been taught or told, I can't tell you how many times I've been told by evolutionists and atheists that the second law of thermodynamics does not apply to the Earth because the Earth biosphere is being is gaining energy from the sun, and so therefore we don't live in what they call a closed system. Well, the first installment that I did of this particular series, I debunked some of that. So if you want to see that, you can. But in this one, I want to talk about the second law of thermodynamics in regards to what it was really, the argument, what it was used for, as far as, again, whether God exists or not. And in actuality, it really had nothing to do with the Earth biosphere, even though, like I pointed out in the last video, they always, every scientist I know of comes up with the idea of steam engines. Steam engine engineers are the ones that came up with the laws of thermodynamics because of their work. So how they say it doesn't apply to the Earth is crazy, but we'll leave that aside. Again, that has nothing to do with the real argument for the second law of thermodynamics in regards to whether God exists. We're talking about the entire universe, not just the Earth system. And there's nobody that I know of that disagrees with the fact that the universe itself is a closed system, and it only has so much energy. And in 2021, the idea that the universe began is widely accepted, and that's settled science. No one disagrees with that I know of. And so the universe itself, we know that it's expanding, and we know that it's expanding at an accelerated rate, so therefore it's headed towards a heat death. So eventually all of the stars and planets and all that stuff will eventually burn out, and it'll just go on forever and ever. But that's the second law of thermodynamics. And the claim is, of course, that since the universe is running down, kind of like a top, you know, it was spun up at the beginning and now it's running down. That means it had a beginning. If it had a beginning, it had a beginner. That is the main argument for the second law of thermodynamics, not the Earth system. Okay, but again, I'll deny the fact that the second law of thermodynamics doesn't have anything to do with our system. I'll just deny that right away. Now, I'll talk about it again. I've got another installment coming, and I'll get in more depth into that argument. But right now, just a side note, his example of baking cookies. I'm sorry, but that is lame. Baking cookies and having cookie dough even, that is a lousy example. Why? Because somebody put the cookie dough together. You know, you don't need you don't need an oven to cook the cookies if it's hot enough wherever you're at. I get that, but what a lame example. I love Brian Cox's example of the sand and the sand dune and the sand castle. Wonderful comparison, it really is. And even again, Darwin's Little Pond is a wonderful example. But baking cookies, really? What a nonsense example. Even baking cookies, just because you heat up a bunch of cookie dough and it melts it down and makes it into a little cookie shape. I don't even think that even applies to the second law of thermodynamics anyway. It's not a real example of the second law. Now, in the Brian Cox video of the one we just did, the first one, in the first of this series, I mean, he's at a place where he's in a sandy area and the buildings are falling down. Well, why are they falling down? Because of the second law of thermodynamics. Oh, and guess what? You know why they're falling down? Because of the energy, because of the heat that's being added into the system. They're falling apart. Yet here in this video, you know, he shows the little sun ray, you know, having something to do with a DNA molecule, which is a information storage, retrieval, error correction system that rivals anything that we know in the whole known universe. And it's the most sophisticated software program in the universe, according to Bill Gates. And it contains millions of lines of code, and you're going to tell me that sunburn is responsible. What nonsense that you would believe something like that. I'm really trying hard here to be nice because you know, this gentleman that put the video together, his claim to fame is it's okay to be smart. Well, that's not even smart. That's not very intelligent. In fact, it's a hand wave of hand waves. Well, I'm trying to be nice, but it's ridiculous. It's just totally ridiculous nonsense. So, sunburn's not responsible for all life on this planet. That's hogwash, total hogwash. I mean, tell your audience where the 400 million lines of code came from for the first bacteria. Where did it come from?
We've shown that DNA is actually the software of life, and you saw some excellent examples of it in the previous talk. And the thing I learned, I know who not to push too far. But chemically, we wrote the genome starting with 4 bottles of chemicals, literally going from the ones and zeros in the computer to writing the 4-letter alphabet, and shown, in fact, that it's totally interchangeable between the digital world and the biological world. We then wrote the entire 1.1 million letters of the genetic code, booted it up, and got a new cell driven totally by the software. So that's what we call synthetic life. We actually use living cells to boot it up, but you change the software and you change the species.
How did the replication system come about? How did the 42 million proteins magically appear when one of them is more complicated than a sandcastle? So you want me to believe that 42 million sandcastles showed up automatically? What nonsense. All of it's nonsense. But again, in this video, I just want you to get that the second law of thermodynamics has to do with the universe. And if the universe is a closed system, which it is, and if the universe is running down, which it is, then it was wound up in the past, and somebody wound it up and got it going. It went from, in fact, Alan Guth says, Andre Lent says, it went from the size of something smaller than the smallest part of an atom to larger than the observable universe in a trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a second.
It is first necessary to understand how the universe was formed and the theory of inflation. It was first conceived of by Alan Guth in 1979, and then later refined and expanded upon by Andre Linde, who had some key insights.
So inflation is a twist on the classic Big Bang theory. It's really an answer to the question of what is it that propelled the Big Bang.
That initially the universe was in kind of energetic vacuum-like state. The universe expanded nearly exponentially fast, and during 1 trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a second, it have grown up to the size much larger than the size of the part of the universe which we are capable of seeing right now.
That's what the universe did at the beginning. To believe that just happened by chance and nothing caused it, or that nothing caused it, that's right, is the nonsense of the highest order. Okay, that's part 2. Thanks.